Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. In Poland, President Biden vowing to maintain U.S. support for Ukraine, but other potential 2024 contenders are weighing in as the amount of aid starts to come into question. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
Following a surprise visit to Kyiv on Monday, President Biden gives a major speech in Warsaw, Poland, and renews his vow to continue supporting Ukraine.
Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia. Never.
And he underscores that his administration's commitment to Ukraine could be for the long term, given that some Republicans in Congress are questioning the amount of aid.
The defense of freedom is not the work of a day or of a year. And we will not tire.
But as Biden makes a statement with his trip to Ukraine and then Poland, other potential 2024 contenders are weighing in on the now year-long war. In a Monday speech, former President Trump called for cutting aid to Ukraine, saying, quote, continuing to pour money in is delaying a settlement. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says U.S. commitment to Ukraine shouldn't get out of control as China is a bigger threat.
These things can escalate, and I don't think it's in our interest to be getting into proxy war with China getting involved.
Meanwhile, in a Tuesday speech in Moscow,
4%.
Russian President Vladimir Putin announces that Russia is suspending participation in the New START treaty, a key nuclear arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia. Biden did not address Putin's announcement on Tuesday, but did take aim at the Russian president by saying,
President Putin chose this war. Every day the war continues is his choice.
All this as sources told the Wall Street Journal that China's Xi Jinping is heading to Moscow in the coming months. And China already sent its top diplomat to Moscow on Tuesday, even amid U.S. allegations that Beijing is considering providing lethal support to Russia. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
And to help us better understand President Biden's visit to Poland, we're happy to have with us Poland's Consul General in New York, Adrian Kubicki. Consul General Adrian Kubicki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. Consul General, if you could tell us, what is the significance of President Biden giving this speech in Poland earlier today?
I think that the most important is his presence in Poland right ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russian invasion in Ukraine, and that clear message that has been sent out to Putin and to Russia that NATO remains united and will continue its support to Ukraine until the last of the Russian soldiers leave Ukraine. And I think that having President Biden in Warsaw, particularly in the country that was probably one of the most and the first to provide Ukraine with the needed help, is something of a very symbolic meaning. But there is also the second part of President Biden's visit to Poland. Tomorrow he's going to meet with the B9 countries, the eastern flank NATO countries, where we will have a opportunity to discuss with U.S. administration. Our countries will have a chance to discuss with U.S. administration some of the measures that can be taken in order to enhance the security of our region, of the eastern flank of NATO. So I think it's both symbolic and very productive and practical.
Now, is there a concern that if Putin were to succeed in occupying Ukraine, or a major part of Ukraine, that he might set his eyes on Poland?
Absolutely, yes. Poland's perspective on the invasion is that it actually hasn't started with the invasion in February last year. It rather started in 2014 with taking over Crimea, or maybe even earlier in 2009 when Russia attempted the invasion of Georgia. And we know that they want to go farther. Today, there were documents released. We still have to assess the accuracy of those documents. But some documents revealed that the plans and attempts of including absorbing Belarus into Russia. So we know for sure that the ultimate goal for Putin is to reinstate Soviet Union, maybe even go beyond, and eventually he will become a direct threat also to NATO countries, to Poland, to Baltic countries. So it is still a long-term plan for Putin and for Russia. With that being said, we also see that Russia is not very much capable in terms of their military capabilities to go anywhere beyond the Ukraine. They even struggle in Ukraine. So we have some period of time, first of all, to support Ukraine with the new weaponry, with Western weaponry, to make sure that they are equipped well to push back Russian invaders, and also to enhance our security. NATO has to focus on enhancing security of its own members, above all the members of the eastern flank of NATO.
Now, some have actually said that a potential silver lining to this war is that Russia has exposed their ineptitude in war fighting, as you just mentioned. But how concerned are you that China may start to now insert themselves into this conflict by extending military aid to Russia?
First of all, Russia is never as strong as we assume, but also never as weak as we assume. As I said, it's a large organism, kind of ready, prepared to survive a long period of time, even without progress or visible actions. So this is something that we have to take into considerations. Recent analyses prove that Russian economy is kind of set to survive another few years of this invasion, even without any major progress. So again, we cannot allow ourselves to underestimate Russia. We still have to treat it as a serious threat. And obviously, with other countries jumping in to help Russia, including the biggest one, China, is something that might change the dynamics of this war. And obviously, this is something that we still hope is not going to happen. We should use all diplomatic channels and also, talk some senses to the Chinese leader. I don't think that from their perspective, having Russia as a strong and bigger neighbor is something that they should really support. But again, the puzzles that we see here on a global scale tells us that China has also some game to play here, and we might see some Chinese involvement into helping the Russian efforts to take over Ukraine. But again, hopefully it is not a very likely scenario.
Polish Consul General in New York, Adrian Kubicki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Norfolk Southern is facing pressure to clean up its train derailment and controlled burn in Ohio. The Environmental Protection Agency has ordered the rail company to do everything needed for the cleanup. That includes cleaning services for businesses and residents in the area. The EPA plans to outline all those necessary steps, and if Norfolk Southern fails to comply, the EPA says that it will bill the company triple damages. In the wake of the disaster, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg is turning his attention to safety regulations. He calls for more inspections on high-hazard flammable trains and for the entire freight rail and shipping industry to phase in safer tank cars by 2025. He's also pushing for a minimum of 2 crew members during most rail operations, something previously opposed by Norfolk Southern. The Transportation Secretary has yet to make a trip in person to assess the damages for himself. However, he does say that he plans to attend soon. Former President Trump is scheduled to visit East Palestine, Ohio tomorrow. The visit comes after news that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention will be setting up public health testing. Residents report various symptoms after toxic chemicals from the derailed trains spilled into the ground and waterways. Today, the Biden administration laid out a new rule for the southern border. It's their plan to quell illegal entries, which are expected to surge after Title 42 comes to an end. The rule has already met with some backlash from Democrats and could pose a political challenge for President Biden moving forward. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup.
Illegal crossings at the southwest border have shattered records over the past 2 years.
200,000 a month. In December, we had 250,000 in a single month. Think of 4 Super Bowl stadiums filled coming through that border every month. 4 Super Bowl stadiums.
A surge that the Biden administration expects to worsen after Title 42 ends in just a few months. Now the DHS and DOJ have released a new temporary rule meant to reduce illegal entries. It would make migrants unable to claim asylum in the U.S. if they cross illegally. This could pose a political challenge for Biden if he decides to launch a 2024 presidential run. More than 70 Democrats on Capitol Hill have already disapproved as they anticipated this new rule last month.
Now, anyone who tells you that the only way to secure our border is to punish asylum seekers is lying. It's why we are appalled to see President Biden replicate President Trump's immigration strategy.
The Biden administration's new policies only make it more difficult for the most vulnerable to legally access the United States. We are confident that there is a better way forward.
But the administration says their goal is to encourage migrants to avail themselves of lawful, safe, and orderly pathways into the United States, or otherwise seek asylum or other protection in countries through which they travel, thereby reducing reliance on human smuggling networks. The rule is set to take effect in May and will expire after 2 years. In addition, the administration is expanding the use of the CBP One app as a gateway for the asylum system. This has also gotten pushback, Democrat Senator Ed Markey writing in a statement that it raises troubling issues of inequitable access to and impermissible limits on asylum. The CBP One app allows non-citizens to schedule a time to arrive at ports of entry.
They've changed rechanneling a little bit through the ports of entry now, so you might not see it like that, but rest assured, just as many people will be crossing through the ports of entry.
This comes as lawmakers led by Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan are headed to Yuma, Arizona later this week to hold a border security field hearing at the border. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The Supreme Court heard its first case on Section 230, which protects tech companies from liability for content posted by third parties. The decision on the case could make major changes across the internet. NTD's Jason Perry brings us the story.
Back in 2015, 130 people were killed in an Islamic terrorist attack in France, including an American college student who was studying abroad, Naomi Gonzalez. Her family later sued Google for recommending terrorist videos on YouTube, which is owned by Google. Their lawsuit claims YouTube video recommendations helped spread the Islamic State's message and recruit terrorists. But a lower court dismissed the case, saying Google was protected by Section 230. The law protects tech companies from being responsible for content posted by third parties. The Supreme Court has now taken up that case. This is the first time the highest court has examined the scope of Section 230. Justice Elena Kagan commented.
Every other industry has to internalize the costs of its conduct. Why is it that the tech industry gets a pass? A little bit unclear. On the other hand, we're a court. We really don't know about these things. These are not like the 9 greatest experts on the internet.
The attorney for Google, Lisa Blatt, said the algorithm YouTube uses for recommendations is neutral. And Justice Neil Gorsuch added this.
Another problem also is that it begs the question what a neutral rule is. Is an algorithm always neutral? Don't many of them seek to profit maximize or promote their own products? Some might even prefer one point of view over another.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams also commented on big tech's algorithms.
Some of these things we're calling our young people to do, how to define in themselves, depression, teaching suicide. This stuff is just how to make a gun. And then they act like they're not doing anything wrong. They know their algorithms. They know who they're going after. They know what they're seeking. And then when you look at what happened in Buffalo with the Buffalo shooter, he was radicalized on social media. Social media is impacting our lives, and they're robbing our children of their innocence. And I just believe on a national level that I think the national government must come in and say, What is the corporate responsibility of social media?
Some justices also said it should be up to Congress to make changes to Section 230. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear another case about the issue on Wednesday, this time involving another Islamic terrorist attack in Istanbul, Turkey. The court's rulings are expected by early summer. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.